what you want, when you want it, where you want it. This is The Mesh.
U.S. Health Advisors want you to know your health coverage does not have to be complicated. If you aren't happy with your insurance plan, there are unlimited and comprehensive medical plan options available to you right now. U.S. Health Advisors offers solutions which can't be found anywhere else. They can even offer you the ability to purchase more coverage if and when you need it. U.S. Health Advisors offers fair rates and no surprises. Sounds nice, doesn't it? If you'd like to know more, contact U.S. Health Advisors at 828-554-3032 or by email at daniel.bryant@ushadvisors.com.
Welcome to the StreetCircleDrive podcast here on The Mesh. I am your co-host, Andrew Moose. With me today is Michael McNally. How are you, sir?
I'm doing good. How are you doing?
I'm doing perfect. StreetCircleDrive is your Hickory-centric podcast for people who love Hickory. First, I want to thank you guys for listening. We couldn't do this podcast without you, and we sincerely do appreciate it. So once you finish this podcast, head over to themesh.tv and subscribe to all of our shows so that you'll have them sent directly to your preferred devices. What's new, man?
Your preferred devices.
Preferred devices. You like that?
Yeah.
On your preferred platform.
On your preferred device.
On your preferred device.
Everything's
What's your
preferred.
preferred device and platform?
Platform, I just use Apple Podcasts.
Yeah.
And then device is the phone, plug it into the car.
Right on.
Done.
Yeah, that's the easiest way.
It's the easiest.
I tend to go to the mesh.tv website.
Oh, do you?
I do. Yeah.
Nice plug.
Hey, thanks.
They pay the bills. You should plug all you can.
Speaking about paying the bills, we definitely are looking for new advertisers here on The Mesh. It's a great opportunity to reach a targeted audience. It's a super low cost. For more information, head over to themesh.tv/advertise. There is a advertise button on that page, or you can send an email to info@themesh.tv for more info.
We need some restaurants to step up to the plate.
We definitely do. We've been doing this for 2 years and not a repeat from a restaurant. I can't believe it.
I don't know if we need to talk to them when we go in there. McNally needs some free samples.
You know what we need to do is just make our presence known at the beginning. Be like,
yes.
Listen,
yes,
we're going to close your restaurant down if we don't do this.
That's okay.
Okay. How fun is this? Yeah, for sure. No, I'm going to give you the honors to introduce our guest today.
Awesome. As the official co-host of
there you go.
The podcast. All right. Well, today we wanted to have another session where we really just kind of chatted it up about Hickory, things going on. And so with that said, thought about bringing a friend of mine on the podcast and a friend of Hickory's on the podcast.
I see what you did there.
You like that?
Yeah.
Miss Allison Holtzman. Allison, thank you for joining.
Thank you for having me.
So I think the first time we met was several years ago, and I might have been working at the EDC here, and you were in the throes of kind of early programming and work with Friends of Hickory. So that's where, and since then we've met several times in the addition to just running into each other in town and all those other things that are going on. Tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got to Hickory, and then a little bit about the Friends of Hickory and kind of how that started. And then I think really what we'll do is just kind of kick around conversation about what's going on, what we'd like to see, what's in the future, and all the great stuff going on in Hickory.
Yeah, would love to. Gosh, I mean, that's so long ago in a way. I mean, isn't that crazy? Like, I do remember going in and talking with you. I am, my husband, we have lived here for, 12 years now almost. 11 and a half years. But at that time, I think when I first met you, maybe we'd been here 5 or 6 years. I mean, right. Fairly new to Hickory. We are both from Atlanta. And we're part of that community. I mean, I grew up as caring about the city. My parents, I was born like around the time that they were protesting the destruction of the Fox Theater downtown. We went to a church downtown. So I did have this ongoing narrative with my family and with my father, and actually my grandmother too, about cities, about, what makes a great city. Really, they had a connection. My dad always had a love for New York City. He actually lives there now. But his vision for Atlanta was downtown living, was more residential downtown. And he would look at Piedmont Park and go, we'd pass it and we'd go to a symphony in the park growing up young. And it was, I mean, that was a rough place, honestly. It was rough. And he said, it'll be incredible. One day, these could be just prime property sitting around Piedmont Park. And wouldn't it be great if we had a grocery store downtown? And wouldn't it be amazing if these buildings were redone? And so that was just kind of this ongoing narrative with me as a child. So I did have a love for Atlanta, but both Adrian and I, after going away to school to a smaller city, we were actually in Augusta for med school, really saw that we didn't want to live in such a big place. We loved being part of the community when we lived in Augusta. We loved having connections with people of different ages instead of just kind of being set in your neighborhood, your age group, your school. That's kind of what happens sometimes in big cities. You're compartmentalized. And we loved in Augusta how you could kind of get to know different people of different ages. So when we were looking to where we were going to live, we really did have options, and we wanted to live. We kind of were aiming towards Western North Carolina because we love the mountains, we love the weather, we love the proximity to where we grew up. But we ended up at Hickory, looking at Hickory, and the things that attracted us were the lake. Honestly, on our first tour, having a salt block, my kids were really young, like 2 and 1, and I was pregnant at that time. The salt block I thought was incredible. I thought, this size city has the water and the proximity. I mean, everyone knows where Hickory lies is so valuable. But I could tell this was an engaged community. I loved that there were people living in the in-town area. You could see that. Like, people were taking care of these homes. They weren't just kind of desolate and everybody lived far out. Like, people lived in town. And we just thought from that first visit that this is a city that has great community and has great potential. So I don't want to go on this monologue.
No, this is great.
So I will go
that brought
more.
you here.
Okay.
So then fortunate enough for us to get you guys here.
Right.
Been involved and entrenched in the community, like you said, now for, I wouldn't have guessed, 12 years or so, give or take.
I know, crazy.
Then I know when we met, talk a little bit about what stirred up the emotion in you and others, because it wasn't just your project, but when I think of Friends of Hickory and the stuff that was going on, I think, your face comes to mind first, but I know there are others involved. Totally. So what kind of brought you to that path of, starting this group, a grassroots group of concerned, interested, involved citizens?
Well, honestly, what struck me when we got here was that I think we were in kind of an economic downturn. I mean, we were here in 2007, so it was before the national recession, but Hickory had already had that pre-recession.
We were 6 years into ours by then.
Yeah. Right. So we got here, there was this sort of like kicked in the gut kind of feel that I got from people, especially people from Hickory. And I felt like you would not believe the response of, why did you move here? Why would you move from Atlanta? And it wasn't like wow, this is great. Why did you move here? It was why would you move here? And I was like, what is wrong with, this is such a frustrating reaction, because I wanted to say, because don't you see how good this is? Like, don't you see what you have? And there was a spirit of discouragement. I just felt like there was a lot of discouragement in the community. And what I wanted to show first was you can get something done, because people would say you can't do anything here. And I want to say, yes, you can. You can get something done. So one, I wanted to get something done to show that you can get something done. And two, we wanted to change the conversation. Like, I really want that response when people move here to people like, oh, that's awesome. Why'd you move here? Oh, great. We're so glad you're here. Rather than, why would you move here? So that was what made us really want to start something. And it really started by sitting around the table, gathering some friends, kind of having that little thought conversation and we had young kids at the time, so we wanted, how can we make our kids want to come downtown and stay downtown? Because if it's lively downtown, that's the image people are going to have of Hickory, right? People visiting, they want to see your downtown. Is it lively? Are people down there? So we started talking about, let's put a play piece on Union Square. Let's do something that they can climb on, because they can't climb on the cannon. Yeah. But what can we do down there? And so it literally said, let's do a little park. Okay, where will we do it? literally gathered just people I knew that were friends. And at the time, I mean, a ton of people kind of came in and wanted to be part of that. And we just talked about, let's get it done. And it became bigger than that. I mean, it became bigger in vision as to why I felt like, gosh, I mean, it's a playground, but the reason for why we want to do it is so much bigger than let's just put a playground downtown, And so that's how it started.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
You might not know this, but in your feel, so you moved in from out of town and wanted to kind of just galvanize, not coming in wanting to change something, but just knowing that, I say this a lot, but any place worth living has things worth fixing. So, you just thought things you wanted to evolve and grow and adapt to. But when you were getting these folks and kind of bringing this collection of people together, were you finding that most of them were from here originally, transplants or moving in like you folks did? Or was it was there one group that kind of led the other? Like, I imagine it was a lot of the folks that might have come here either after school or before school or something along those lines.
Right.
And then, like you said, kind of those folks that maybe were a little discouraged, not downtrodden, just discouraged of what's happened before in the region, not thinking anything good's going to happen because it'd been so long. Then they came along afterwards. Was there some sense of one leading the other? Or?
It's honestly, I'm thinking back of like kind of who the original people were, and it was a complete mix, but it needed to be because. Yeah. The reason we were able to engage Hickory so well was because of people who were from here, that knew people, that had respect of the city already. That we weren't just some random person.
Fly-by-night group.
Just trying to say, hey, we're going to change everything. But I think having people I think it was a mix. I think there were both because there are people from Hickory that love Hickory. And so I think what it did is it stirred some of those people up that already did feel proud of their city to say, I remember Roger Young saying at that first meeting, standing up and saying, thank you to all of you he was here when his parents and their group were doing things to make Hickory great, to bring in the salt block and other things. They were so passionate about it. And he said, now it's our turn, and we want to do something. So I think that really struck people, and it definitely stuck with me.
That's awesome. And I mean, you briefly talked on it, but so those early conversations, I'm sure a myriad of things, but this play area downtown was something that really bubbled to the surface quickly. And for those listening that might not be aware, so all of those early discussions and plans and thoughts and work ended up being what's now the Lowe's Foods
City Park
in downtown, right off of Union Square, next to whatever the bank is called now, Capital Bank, First National.
Catty corner from Larry's Music and Sound and all that.
Right around there. Yep. So great park, opened several years ago now. It's one of those that has kind of taken on a life of its own, which is great. Now it is an attraction. It's not hey, what can kids do people will go downtown to that park and then hopefully do some other things.
Stay there, yeah.
So congratulations. Great job. That's been a wonderful addition to the city. I know my children.
It's always bustling.
My children, even as
That's
my
awesome.
children actually recently said, they're getting mine are 11 and 9. And it's, now it's, they want what's the next iteration for them as they get older, which is a great sign. That means
I do wonder what that is. What is it for teenagers?
It'll be interesting.
Yeah.
I keep saying we need a ninja park. Apex, North Carolina has a great one, but you need more space, and it's kind of we can talk offline about some opportunities in that world.
Yeah.
Jump off bridges and whatnot.
What were some of the other things that were discussed in addition to? I know that wasn't the only thing. I'm sure everybody kind of attached to it quickly because it felt like something that probably could work and be done. But what were some other things that...
Well, initially, that was what we wanted to do, period. But it had ongoing repercussions. And honestly, we worked hard because a lot did come up, because we did talk about, whether it's... Because now there have been further discussions. Education was discussed. A lot of things. But what we were very purposeful in saying... Not right now. We have to focus on this. We have to do it well. It was purely volunteer. And even in volunteering, easily over 40 hours. It's a lot of hours.
You were putting in work. Yeah. And others were too.
Yeah. And so in order to do that one thing well, we really did kind of push aside some things that could not be taken on at that point. Gosh, I mean, other ideas, there's plenty out there. I mean, there's a lot. But at that time,
that was singular focus in many ways, which is great. I mean,
for a greater
we
cause.
were able to check that box.
Yeah.
And then that obviously helps initiatives moving forward when people say, okay, it's not just a thinking think tank group sort of thing. Then
and that was
ideas, but nothing happens.
And that was pre-bond and that kind of thing.
Right.
So there was a goal, although we as a nonprofit could not support that or be behind that. There was an idea on a personal level for many of us of saying, see, investment in your city matters. Whatever that looks like. Invest in your city, invest in your community, invest outside of your own house and backyard, invest into making the community great. Anyway.
Right, and I think a lot of the things that kind of tie into that is a lot of downtown businesses are seeing a huge influx of business now of the improvements that are downtown. Granted, they had to go through a little pain for 5 or 6 months, and hopefully all the business made through that. But now with the investments in downtown, with the streetscapes and the park, and you see people living and thriving downtown. People are staying downtown, and the economic impact of that is people are going to spend money there, of course.
Right.
Absolutely.
And even some of our local businesses have moved downtown. And I think of the Hickory Academy of Martial Arts. It was already an established business in town, but they, I'm sure there's other reasons, but Josh moved that business to downtown and kind of followed the groundswell. And we've talked about this in the past, but you start having those projects start, and there can be a chicken or the egg. So you start a project or you announce a project knowing that it's going to take some time to get going, but after the city walk and what we already happened at Union Square, and we've got these 2 residential announcements. We've seen restaurants open and some others. So some that started before the work took place that, like you said, at least eyeball tests, it looks like most of them have made it through. They might have different conversations on how they made it through, but it looks to be most of them are still operational and hopefully now making up for any down swings they might have had during construction. But I think now we've got an influx of more things that are going into the downtown area. And along with what Allison said, there's a lot of things going on all across Hickory, Viewmont, everywhere else along those lines. But the downtown, if you got that downtown area thriving,
it's the front door to your city.
The front door, exactly. Yeah. So it's great to see all that sort of stuff happening. So in the years since, and we talked about this a little bit at lunch even, and like I mentioned, I got 11 and twins that are 9. So years ago when this was just a concept, they were young. Now they're starting to get into their, very active phases of their life that can be a little bit of a time suck, but in a good way. And I know that you're in the throes of that because you run the whole spectrum of high school to elementary school.
Yeah.
What's going on right now with the group? What are some ideas or plans, or what do you envision moving forward?
We still have the very same focus, and there's been a lot of time sitting and talking about what that right project is, because we do really want to do it well. And things that have been discussed, I will tell you, have been an artist building where we can have artists, kind of a place where you kind of create a culture where Hickory and visitors to Hickory can come in and see artists at work, in a place where they can be connected to each other, because that is so important in a community for there to be a kind of a community among artists rather than kind of a separate here, there, whatever. I think artists bring beauty to an area. They bring creativity. They bring diverse culture. And I think giving them an area, a community would have been something very cool. That is something that is in the back of our mind, but we couldn't take on the whole building at the time. It was one of these things that it would have been too much to take on in a fundraising situation. We are working in partnership with the Velo Club. You've already had that discussion. Yep. In creating a 13-mile bike loop around the city, and then from that, a plan to really connect even Conover. We've talked to the county manager about connecting other cities, and the county even coming in and partnering in this, so that we are a city that really values alternate means of transportation. That's kind of going on. One of our missions in Friends of Hickory is to have a positive voice in city and county and government affairs, and to push. And so that's something that has required constant conversation, constant calls, constant pushing to say, come on, let's get behind this. So now the city is hiring a cycling planner to come in from professionally and plan this for our city, so that as we move forward and as we redo roads, we do them with that in mind.
Yeah, just cycling, thinking about how do we incorporate that in the early phases of building, and not having to try to retrofit or
totally, and to do it as it comes. Yeah, and so that's something that we have been working on. We've also had discussions with building owners and some artists about trying to create mural campaigns, trying to bring, and that went along, that kind of came off of the art discussion. How can we encourage building owners and the city to embrace great murals that kind of bring life and public art, where people can come, and a lot of this is not something, and this has actually been something that we wanted to be clear from day one. We don't want to take over what other groups are doing. If they're there and they're working, let's do this together. Like, how can we support? We've always kind of wanted to be a hub of support for ideas that other people have, that we can kind of help spur this along. We kind of did that a little with the mountain biking trails. There's a little help that we were able to kind of push and help move that along. There's been interest in kind of trying to figure out a way to put in some cross-country trails, possibly even at Cloninger Mill Park. Brought that up to discussion, but we'd have to look at the topography. So as of right now, there is a time that we are sitting and we're waiting. We are still very much engaged in trying to figure out how to make this work. One thing we'd love to do is start meetups again. I think there's a lot of value in bringing people together to discuss. But truthfully, we need to pull in additional leaders that can help this, because I am way in the throes of life with 4 kids in their prime. But gosh, we're ready, and we're waiting, and we are waiting for the right project. I mean, we can continue to have these conversations with the city and conversations with people and connecting people. We are doing that. But before we do another project, it needs to be right, and it needs to be able to be done well, because we don't want to go into it halfway. Mm-hmm. So that's where we are.
Absolutely.
That's right. We ask every guest that we have on Street Circle Drive this question, and it's our magic wand question. So if you had a magic wand that you could wave and make something happen here in Hickory, what would it be? It could be either with your group or just an overall sentiment, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah. And while you're thinking, I also like to thank Dan Bryant for being our sponsor on this podcast. Dan is from U.S. Health Advisors. Thank you again to him for his partnership with us. So thank you, Dan.
I truly think one of the biggest things is changing the conversation, because I would love, and I think there's some of this happening with multiple, what we did, what the bond did, what some people are doing in investment. I would love people to be so proud of this city that I think that's the most catching thing you can do. That invites investment, because if you're excited about where you live, other people are excited about where you live. Like, that excitement breeds excitement. So I want people, when I go to Charlotte, to go, "Oh, you're from Hickory? I've heard that's so cool. And I cannot tell you how far that goes in benefiting a city. Like, I think be happy and proud of where you live, and realize the positive things that exist here. And I mean, if you think of, I've said this before, like, you think of Texas, people that live there are so proud, it gets almost annoying. But it breeds this investment in their small towns and in themselves, that they just want to be part of making it better. There's certain schools have that pride, and that pride is really catching.
Mm-hmm. And it happens everywhere. I mean, Asheville, I would say 20 years ago, Asheville had that, and it brings external investment in, which then allows for the more internal.
On that note, you were mentioning the downtowns. That was always a thought. I mean, the downtown area. Mm-hmm. in bringing more people downtown for shopping, this kind of thing. I also have always thought that we need to look to say, how can we bring outsiders into Hickory? Because truthfully, the 1 mile radius around downtown Hickory cannot support 10 restaurants and 30 stores or whatever is down there. We can't do that. We need to be a place that is a destination community. And that people think, wow, that seems far-fetched, but it's so not. Being from Atlanta, I cannot tell you how many people want to get out of town for a weekend and go to a cute, walkable, pedestrian-friendly downtown. So I think the bond's going to bring that. So we need a hotel.
Well,
we need
Moose has been here for
McNally. McNally is Allison.
Okay.
Yeah, I can jump on a soapbox on, and not in
a downtown hotel. Yeah.
Not in a, nobody else has done this, or shame on everybody else for not doing it. But I agree with that. I've said, especially as we look to bring on more residential downtown, people are going to stop tuning in to hear me say this, but a grocery store. Well, we might not be able to get a national chain. And I've seen in another community that I worked in, a co-op grocery store worked, where you've got,
cool.
like the investment from people and individuals to be half of your seed money. Then you can get grants and maybe even some government money to come in to help. And then it just becomes its own property. But I've seen when that is brought into downtown, then more residential units came. They just didn't think people aren't going to want to live downtown to have to drive out to go do all their normal day-to-day activities. So having things like that in that area would be fabulous. A downtown hotel, I don't think it could be boutique. It's not to be huge. It can accentuate what we already have for the folks here that are in that industry. So it wouldn't be something that takes away from that. I've got all sorts of ideas, but like many people do, people. I'm not the only one coming up with ideas, and I think we say this, and then it's easy to just you get back into your flow of life and everything going on, which is why a group like Friends of Hickory is important to really get those people together and kind of galvanize, bring those thoughts in, but galvanize effort.
And support those
folks.
desires.
Yeah, exactly. And where you feel like, okay, it's not just some harebrained idea. There's 100 other people that are willing to pitch in time, talent, and treasure to see it to fruition. So, I love hearing those things and seeing what can happen with that along the way. And I know that, like you said, you're in the throes of life, but I think a lot of the people that are most galvanized right now, and it's not because others aren't. It's just because I want my kids to stay here or come back here.
Totally.
And this is one of those towns that can do it, and we bring in those investments from outside. It's great. And you talk about the basically the pride and community pride being a big deal. And it's interesting because, again, in another community, there was a large healthcare grant, went out to 10 communities across the country, and out of 100 applications, you had to figure out, all right, what are my 3 or 4 primary areas we're going to focus on as a community where we are going to focus on and then have healthcare outcomes down the road. And this was Spartanburg, South Carolina. And one of, they had some that you would expect that you really automatically tie into healthcare.
Right.
Obesity, whatever that might be. One of theirs, and they were the only one in the country to do it, which I would think helped put them and make them stand out, was an effort for community pride. And their whole thing was, if you have pride in your community, it can lead to healthier lives because whether that is any sort of like mental health. Like if you're down on where you live, then that easily spirals to you're down on your life. Then you're down on everything else that comes along in building that life and so forth. So it really became, all right, how do we build up this sense of pride, and how do we measure what that means to the healthcare outcomes of our community? I thought it was just, a great way to stand out is measuring something else. And I'd love to see what their metrics are. And that's something I probably should check out and see how that's gone over the last 3 years or so. But I thought that was so cool. And that's automatically the first thing I think of when you say that. Not only does it just give a sense of pride in other people, everybody wants to know what do you have going on somewhere. I've heard stuff about that. I want to check it out.
The unfortunate part is the people that speak the loudest are mostly naysayers. And so it's up to us as a community to say, hey, Hickory's awesome. Like Hickory's a great place to live. Hickory's a great place to raise your kids. Great schools, great university, great community college system. Getting ready to have a bunch of new stuff that's going to be awesome. And it is. And just to Allison's point, like we need to have that pride. Right. And you can't put your finger on it. You can't say, "Oh, well, if we change this will happen.
Right.
If we change this,
it'll be different for everybody.
Happen. If we do these bond projects, the pride will come." I think it's a lot of it is people just realizing what we have. People realizing that it's you think you got it bad here, you don't. You really don't.
Go visit. Go see the street somewhere else.
And we're saying this, and I don't want anybody. This is not a Hickory problem. This is name any city that you think is awesome in the country.
Totally.
Yeah.
All of them have the same percentage of naysayers for their community, and as an outsider, you think that community is awesome.
Right.
I mean, they all have the naysayers.
They totally do.
Now they have a megaphone with social media.
Or the
and
bigger
usually the
ones
same arguments.
Yeah, and a lot of them are already. If you get to a certain tipping point, you're already going to get that external. Charleston. Charleston has just as many internal naysayers.
Sure,
but they've got enough steam where they're going to get plenty of investment and plenty of visitors and plenty of things going on. Well, you've got to start that train down the path to get that to that point. And I think what we have here is similar. We've just got to get more people here, not believing it. I think they do believe it. I think they just need to know what tools are in the toolbox to tout and talk about. That's great.
That brings one thing that we didn't mention that we've actually spent a ton of time on and some money on is we feel like there needs to be. I mean, obviously, it's face to face. It's being outside. It's doing that, but there's also an online presence that needs to happen. And I think something that's very difficult for Hickory is finding what you're looking for. So, if you're not from here, it's a very word of mouth, and I think all small cities are until you kind of develop something new.
Right.
But I mean, it took me. I actually think I'd been here 5 years before I heard of Foot Candle. I mean, I even remember my aunt looking at Hickory and going, "Well, I love independent movies. Do y'all have an independent theater?" And I said, "No." And she's like, "Oh well," that was a deal breaker for her. That's a word. See, And then I found out about Foot Candle, and it's an incredible community of independent film lovers. It's incredible. But so what we've talked about and have started to develop and have the framework for is a website that people can go to find out a really centralized calendar that pulls from, it's a centralized calendar being one of the things, to a blog that has these conversations and discussions and being able to do that kind of thing. But when people Google Hickory from the outside, what to do in Hickory this weekend, or, what's going on, they come across this that has discussion and liveliness, and you see what it helps people that are new to the city or visiting the city know where to begin, what to start. So that's something we desperately want to do. It requires manpower. Yeah. That's the problem.
I actually had a conversation with your husband about this.
I'm sure. It's his passion.
A few weeks, a couple months ago, actually. And that it just seems like that when people are all on the same page and heading towards the same direction, and it's just as simple as know what's going on and what things are available to you, it doesn't create that shadow of a doubt that you have. Is like, oh, well, there's nothing to do here, or this and the other thing. Well, yeah, there is. Go check out the Friends of Hickory calendar. Check out the Mesh calendar, or whatever.
That's right.
And it's that sort of thing. Like it almost is. It's almost too easy. And it's like, oh, well, if we had this, and I know how hard it is trying to get all these community organizations to come together to dump information.
It's the coming together.
Place.
Like, how are we going to?
How does that?
If we can get the Arts Council into y'all and us, everyone's saying, the convention center. All of us.
Aggregator for Hickory websites or organizations.
How do we keep it going?
Right.
Yeah,
That's right.
But that's something I think would be a real help in this community, is to have an online spot to go to find this.
Absolutely.
And if anybody has any ideas, you can shoot them over to the info@themesh.tv, and we can pass them along to the right people and all that stuff. Yeah.
So you talked a little bit as we kind of wind down here. What would be next steps for the group? Like you talked about, there is a committed group of folks that are interested and invested and involved. We want to add some more programming. What's the next idea, iteration? How do we build up that bullpen of leaders within the Friends of Hickory. How can people get involved? Is there a website, email, phone?
Because we're not actively doing anything. It's hard. I mean, it's hard right now to say, "Hey, come get involved." I think something that we need to do soon, and I would like to do, but honestly, would need some co-support in this.
Absolutely.
Is to get these meetups going, because I think it just gives us a face-to-face engagement, and we would like someone that wants to help and maybe financially invest in trying to make this website happen. I think there'd have to be, or partnership, or has that kind of framework. I think if we could get those two things really going, that could spur incredible, tangible projects. So the meetups, I'd love to do something where, whether it's quarterly or monthly, even eventually, you can come together and talk about a certain subject and mingle together and grant ideas, because I feel like those really brought some excitement to our community about, this could happen. I mean, maybe it'll push that person who's thinking of starting this really cool, fun, casual restaurant that appeal to artists and college kids and families or whatever. Yeah, I'm just going to go for it. How can we get them doing that, or some
give that nice gentle nudge in a
even on a private investment
where
thing.
We are.
Yeah, I don't know. So that's something I'd really like to do. So I mean, be patient, keep your eyes open, and I'd love to get. We will need you, and if someone has a real desire to just say, "I want to just help take this on and partner with you," come on. That would be awesome. I would need that. Yeah. We'd welcome that.
Allison, thank you so much.
Yes, thank you.
We appreciate it very much.
Thanks.
This was a great conversation.
Thank you for being a champion for Hickory too.
For sure.
It's awesome.
Thank y'all for what you're doing.
And we're going to move along to some events to tell people what is going on in the next couple of weeks here in Hickory.
Drop some knowledge, Moose.
I'll just drop a few knowledges on you guys. This knowledges, you like that? Yeah. I just made that up.
I just wanted to call you out.
All right on. This is what we're talking about, Allison, about me having absolutely 100% command of the English language.
Yeah.
All right. So this weekend coming up, Friday, November 22nd, is the Downtown Christmas Parade and tree lighting.
I'm judging.
What?
I am one of the judges for
if you want some bribes,
I am fully accommodating.
What's your
to all bribes.
What's your Venmo handle?
I'll tell you what. We can talk. Find me at the top of the parking deck during the parade.
There you go.
Back office deals.
Also going on this weekend, TEDx Hickory is happening at Little Orion. We got to talk about them.
I know you're going to, so go for it. I was waiting for it.
It's the LR Bears, man.
Yeah.
It's the first round of the NCAA playoff game. We're hosting Miles College, 2:00 between the bricks. You going?
Yep. Number 2 seed in the Southeast.
Super regional.
Super regional.
Yeah,
okay, so there's four 18 super regionals.
Yep. And
Bears, consecutive undefeated seasons.
Correct. And we are. It looks like we're. I mean, knock on wood. If we do well, we're meeting Valdosta out there again. So
just like last year.
Buckle up, folks. It's going to be a
revenge
good one.
year.
Yeah. Come, be real supportive of the university. It is your community university after all.
Hickory's team.
That's right.
2:00 kickoff.
2:00 kick. Yeah. So
and the women Bears.
Yep.
The soccer team are in the playoffs as well.
The soccer team's playing at 6:00.
They're a high seed
Friday.
as well.
Yeah, real high seed. So
crushing it.
Yeah, they are. So go support your LR Bears out there. On November 30th, Saturday, is the Shop Small Saturday event. You can go check out all your local shops and all that good stuff. Most downtown shops in Hickory will have some sort of deal going on. I think there's a 20% coupon going on. Go check out Downtown Hickory's or HDDA's website and Facebook page. It's got a lot of information there for you.
Yeah. Stay home Friday. You don't have to go out there and run over people and get in the next news clip on YouTube by stampeding into Walmart to get $2 off a doll.
That's right. Hey, listen, if you are
go Saturday, park your car, and walk around Union Square. Make it happen.
If you do,
or Fremont,
if you do happen to go to Black Friday and you run into some great footage, make sure you take it in landscape mode so everybody can see it. Don't hold it in portrait mode. Just looking out for y'all trying to get on worldstar.com. Okay. Moving right along, Music in the Mill's coming up December 6th, Mandolin Orange. If you got tickets to that, way to go, because I think it is sold out. Shameless plug here. Moose and Friends Thanksgiving benefit at the Old Hickory Tap Room. It's happening Thanksgiving night, 8 o'clock. It's a food drive for the Hickory Soup Kitchen, so we're looking forward to that.
You've been doing that for a while now.
We've been doing that night for about 10 years now.
But for Soup Kitchen.
But for the Soup Kitchen, this is our second straight year, and I've talked to Austin, and he said the real need, and even if you're not going to come to that benefit show, which is really unfortunate, but if you want to give to the Soup Kitchen, their immediate needs right now are canned vegetables and fruit. So if you're listening to this and want to go donate to those guys, please do. And
make it happen.
McNally, we had a great lunch today. We did. Yeah, it was fantastic.
The spot we hadn't been to.
Another Hickory downtown staple that we haven't been to.
That's right. I've been here before. And I'm going to get the name wrong. I did take a picture
of the Hickory Arcade and Cafe.
Okay. I just call it the arcade.
So do I.
And so everybody knows where that is.
Right.
But I've been there for breakfast plenty of times. Mm-hmm. Good old greasy spoon breakfast.
Yeah.
Omelets, sandwiches, all that stuff. Sure. So we went today for lunch. First lunch voyage. And so a lot of stuff that you would expect from your downtown staple greasy spoon sort of place. Pulling up the menu while I speak. So they had lunch plates of hamburger steak, 2 different sizes, 6 ounce or 12 ounce. I didn't go for that, but if I did, you know which size I would go for.
Nuh-uh.
Chopped barbecue trays and plates, flounder, chicken tenders, then all the sandwiches you could think of, burgers, cheesesteaks, pimento cheese, grilled chicken, BLTs, hot dogs down the line. Your typical sides, fries, onion rings, okra, corn nuggets, fried pickles. And then just for everybody that's interested or curious, they have salads to make everyone feel better. We did not partake in the salad portion of the menu. We saved that for everyone else. I, to the surprise of no one, pulled double duty.
You're doing it for the fans, though, brother.
I definitely don't do it for my doctor, my future.
Your children?
Or anybody else. But for me in that one gluttonous moment. So going to school, we had a place in Greenville called Cubby's, and nothing still beats it. But we would always go there and get the Philly or the cheesesteak and the cheeseburgers. That's what they're known. Just a flat, basic Carolina style, and cheesesteaks that still, other than maybe Philly, I've not found anything like it. So I went. I'll try it, kind of kick it old school. I went with the Philly cheesesteak and the double cheeseburger.
Right. Of course you did.
And as Allison sits over there and chuckles. She came over. She arrived late. She saw the plate there. She just didn't hear the order.
Let's just preface this conversation. Allison came and ate lunch with us. She saw your order and was like, no, I'm good.
I'm just going to get a diet soda. Thank you very much. He's eating enough for my whole family. But she might have thought that came as like, oh, that must be the special. It's 2 items. I didn't get fries. I was trying to watch my figure. Thank you very much. So
I thought you would like to be quite honest.
See, thank you. It can always be worse. It can always be worse. So I really enjoyed it. The Philly cheesesteak, the cheese, I would have liked if it was melted all the way through. The meat and the peppers and mushrooms.
Not just on top.
It was mostly on top.
Yeah, sure.
But it was excellent. So it had, peppers, onions, mushrooms, meat and cheese, soft hoagie bun, which is a must. I've had some with crunchy. No, ain't worth it. Double cheeseburger, which I was expecting the real thin, like they mashed the patty into
the like on the flat
These
top.
were a little thicker than I was anticipating. I mean, this is a legit double cheeseburger.
You took in a half-pound burger today?
It doesn't say. It does not give any measurement of ounces.
Were they 2 quarter-pounders?
I don't know. It was a double, and it was not a lot.
It was pre-cooked.
That's right, pre-cooked weight. Right. All the grease is gone. At least lost an ounce or 2. And I got mine with, roughly Carolina style, like chili, coleslaw, mustard. Didn't do the onions, and that was a legit double cheeseburger.
Yeah.
Future better behaved Michael McNally would just get that.
Sure.
They were both excellent, and their water was.
Let's just be honest. Like
sufficient.
You only go out. You only go out and really show out here for the podcast. You do it.
I do it for the people.
I know you do.
It's not for me.
I know you did. I was looking through the menu, and there's a lot of things that were just like really tickling my fancy. I was like, this is great, because just like you, this was my main voyage for lunch. I've eaten that for breakfast a bunch, but never had the opportunity to go for lunch. Today, however, I had the chicken Philly and fried okra. Both were fantastic. Now I'm going to kind of do a little pushback here. I like a crunchy bun on Philly cheesesteak, and I don't mind the cheese melted on top. So it was fine. Fried okra, great. You can't really mess up fried okra, but it was really good. If you had to give it a score on just the food, McNally.
Oh, okay.
Just the food, because honestly, let me back up. I like the ambiance of the place.
Yeah, you got to have places like that.
Let me tell you what I really like: the temperature of the place.
Okay.
It's not hot in there, because most places you go into this time of year, it's hot. It's temperature hot. This place was like 60 degrees. It was perfect. I don't know if the heat was broke, but this guy liked it.
Wow,
I know.
You're taking your judging to another level here.
I appreciate that. Like you said, I do it for the people. I digress.
Food only, I'd give it probably an 8.5. I mean, nothing wrong with that. It's not fine dining, but
yeah, for sure.
I'll tell you, and not just that. The food is great. The prices were awesome.
Yeah, there it is. What'd you give for your double entree meal today?
$12.
See there? Perfect.
But it was enough to feed 2 people.
Yeah, there you go.
Or 1 me.
Gotcha. I give it, on the Andrew Moose scale, a solid 6.6 out of 7. It's just a little higher than most, just because I like the location of it. I think it's great.
94.
I know, it's high. It's high. Hickory Staple, it's good stuff. It's good stuff.
Right across from the Carolina
We'll
Theater.
explain later. Yeah, it's right across the street from the Carolina, down the street from Crescent Moon, down the hill.
Our local independent theater.
There it is.
But yeah. Allison, how was your Diet Coke today?
Yeah.
Oh, it was great, and they were on it with the refill.
Yeah,
They tried to give you more than you. They were right.
It was.
The service was
I have to
fantastic.
say, as terrible as styrofoam is, I love a Diet Coke in a styrofoam cup.
There it is.
It's the best thing.
Yeah,
Perfect.
same. It's good stuff. However, the only drawback of the whole place was, in order for me to go to the restroom, I had to get a key from the register, and it was attached to
It was like a 1980s school
3-foot
hall.
long freaking ladle. It felt like this was my hall pass in elementary school, but it was funny. I think McNally got a little chuckle out of it, but
Well, that's what you get when you can't hold your bladder for 30 minutes.
I know. Hey, what can you do?
Whatever.
So anyway, well, that wraps it up.
That was awesome.
What do you think, Allison? You're going to come back again? Maybe.
Sure.
If that's not a vote of confidence, I don't know what is, folks.
I don't know. Did we cover everything?
Y'all are good. Y'all are good.
Well, great. Well, we appreciate everyone listening. This has been another great episode of Street Circle Drive here on The Mesh. Thank you, listeners, for tuning in. Again, if you want to think about advertising with us, we would love to have a conversation with you. Michael, thanks, man. Appreciate it a lot.
Thank you, Moose.
My co-host.
Yes, my co-host, I guess.
That's right. Again, till next time.
Love where you live.
You've been listening to The Mesh, an online media network of shows and programs ranging from business to arts, sports to entertainment, music to community. All programs are available on the website as well as through iTunes and YouTube. Check us out online at themesh.tv. Discover other network shows and give us feedback on what you just heard.